My name is Tom Freeberg, and I am a member and past president of the State Bar of South Dakota. As lawyers, we spend our lives helping others. We dedicate our time and resources to supporting our clients, yet we often fail to recognize the signs that we or one of our colleagues may need help. Please take a moment to learn how mental health, substance use, or addiction disorders can impact our lives both personally and professionally, and how we can make our lives better and live above the bar.
Hello, my name is Pamela Ryder and I'm president of the State Bar of South Dakota. And joining me today is Dr. Singh from Sanford Psychiatry. Welcome to the State Bar's Lawyers Assistance Committee's Living Above the Bar series, where we'll discuss a series of health-related topics that impact us both personally and professionally. And today we will be discussing with Dr. Singh how to identify if you or someone you know is suffering from emotional or psychological trauma and how to seek help for that. But first, Dr. Singh, thank you for joining us to talk with us about this important issue. Can you please explain to us what is emotional or psychological trauma?
The important part to understand when people talk about emotional or psychological trauma is an individual's perception of what just happened. So it could be a traumatic event, but an important part to understand is people looking at it from the outside might not always perceive it as traumatic. So it is that individual's perception of what happened, what was traumatizing in their life, that leads to symptoms of psychological and emotional trauma. So perception of the individual in the situations that they find themselves in is a critical part of the onset of symptoms of emotional trauma.
And what are some of the signs and symptoms of emotional trauma?
So the most important symptoms that you will notice is that it might affect sleep. It can lead to mood changes. Mood irritability tends to be a common symptom of trauma-related mood changes. So you will see individuals who tend to anger very easily. They're usually short in their interaction with other individuals. They tend to get upset more easily. They tend to come across as being a lot more distracted in their conversations with people around them. If you start to notice symptoms like that, and if you know that somebody has gone through a traumatic event recently, I would be very, very cognizant of the fact that you might be looking at somebody who might be developing some symptoms of trauma-related psychological symptoms.
Do you have some tips for us in terms of recognizing who may need help recovering from a traumatic event?
I think you need to have this conversation with that individual. Now, everybody deals with trauma in a very different way. Forcing somebody into therapy for trauma is not always very effective. You want to make sure that the individual is ready to talk about the traumatic event. They are willing and able to go in and have that conversation with either their therapist or their primary care physician. So I would have this conversation with that individual. I would be supportive. I would be very empathetic. I would let them know what I'm seeing, what I'm noticing in terms of change in their personality. I would have a conversation about their mood irritability with them. But at the end of the day, I would leave the decision up to them to seek help.
How would someone who did experience a traumatic event know that it might be the right time for them to seek professional help?
Usually time. Time is a big healer. So some individuals will go through a traumatic event and maybe in a few weeks, maybe a few months, are able to cope with the trauma and are able to move on. They might continue to have some residual symptoms, but are able to move on. On the other hand, there might be some individuals who will continue to replay the trauma, will have feelings of guilt associated with the trauma. They might have nightmares or sleep disturbances related with the trauma. If these symptoms are causing an impairment in their lives, that is the time for them to go and seek help.
We have heard the term post-traumatic stress disorder, particularly in relation to veterans, but can that disorder impact professionals as well?
Yes. So post-traumatic stress disorder includes situation where an individual is put where they perceive that they are in danger. It could be physical, it could be psychological distress being in that particular situation. So as a professional, can you be put in that situation? Yes, there is a possibility you could be put in that situation that could lead to trauma-related symptoms.
And Dr. Singh, what can we do to help a colleague or friend who may be suffering from a traumatic event?
Having this conversation with the individual is very, very important. Letting them know that you are noticing these changes in them, being supportive, being empathetic, and keep an eye out for any underlying substance use changes that you might see. That could be a red flag that this individual, even though they might tell you they are doing fine, but if you see some social change in their drinking habits, their interaction with friends and family, those might be things that you might want to address with them and try to point them in the direction of getting help.
Thank you, Dr. Singh, for sharing with us about how to recognize and deal with individuals that may be suffering from a traumatic event. And thank you for those of you taking the time to view this segment of our Living Above the Bar series. Take care.